One of the things that disturbed me most in the aftermath of the 7th was the sheer lack of human empathy for what the people of Israel went through that day. About 6 months after the 7th, there were two young people who were survivors of the Nova Party, and they landed in England, in Manchester, at the airport, and they were there to raise funds and awareness for post-traumatic stress disorder in the survivors of terrorist attacks. And they were detained at Manchester Airport by British guards who said, among other things, we need to make sure you're not going to try to do here what you're doing in Gaza.
When the guardians of human rights become a corrupt, taxpayer-funded theatre, who do you trust? Douglas Murray unmasks the grotesque hypocrisy. While phantom fortunes are hunted, real puppet masters buy our institutions for breakfast. What happens when terror survivors fleeing a massacre are detained by British guards and accused of being the aggressors? This isn't just a failure, it's a deep moral sickness.
Well, there is a lot that people like people in this room can do. A huge amount. First of all, of course, by supporting the work of our excellent organization, UN Watch. But secondly, by doing everything you can in your lives to push back against it and to make sure that your children and your friends are resilient in the face of this madness. You know, there's a poem by W.H. Auden I'm very fond of, September the 1st, 1939, where the poet writes, "All I have is a voice to undo the folded lie." But a voice is not nothing. And if you use yours in the time you have well, you could undo an awful lot of folded lies. And I think we can do so together.
All these all these international bodies institutionalized anti-Semitism that UN Watch tries to fight against. But I walked up to somebody in the street in Zurich, where I live, who was taking hands out for Amnesty International. And I tried to tell the volunteer that she works for a compromised organization. Most of our friends believe that they're not compromised. Hillel Neuer has to go to the Dutch parliament trying to convince parliamentarians. What is the future of the UN system?
Well, I mean, it's never been good, has it? We'll see. I mean, there are lots of positive things that could be done. Maybe they'll come from Washington, maybe they'll come from elsewhere, but UN Watch and others have demonstrated for years the way in which this system is corrupt. And we all know that, of course, but as you say, the problem is a lot of people we know will still say, you know, oh, but the Red Cross said X, or, you know, the Amnesty said Y.
Douglas Murray exposes the grotesque joke, we fund our own demise. The UN Human Rights Council, with members like China and Cuba, condemns democracies while ignoring its own tyrants. Amnesty's reports are just political hit jobs disguised as humanitarianism. These organisations aren't compromised, they're corrupt to the core. So when do we stop treating this expensive, taxpayer-funded bullshit theatre seriously?
I suppose really the most valuable tool is one of the tools that UN Watch wields, which is the tool of revealing the actual truth. And I go back to that thing about them being what they say you are. Consider the number of people who now, online and off, talk about, for instance, Jewish money and Jewish influence in, for instance, American politics. If you look at all of the funding that has ever been used for lobbying by, I don't know, AIPAC or anyone else, it's a fraction of what the Qataris spend in an average month.
Yeah.
So they say things like, we do not want foreign involvement in our politics. And you go, interesting. How are you getting on with the Qataris? We will not tolerate... they do. They just have an obsession with Jews and Israel. But the way to reveal that is just to keep on revealing it. I mean, it's not like this isn't a target-rich environment to expose hypocrisy and human stupidity.
I've spent far too much time on Twitter, and it used to wound me a lot more. It's not easy to do. It's almost like you need training for it. But I need to move on because our time is coming to a close. I enjoy the acerbic sort of quiet wit that happens, but underneath it, I think that anybody who cares about the West must be in pain to see so many of our countries and institutions being torn down. And this guy, Os Guinness, I discovered him recently, he spoke at something called ARC in London. He says that we're at a civilizational turning point.
They screech about Jewish money while Qatar buys our universities and politicians for breakfast. It's a pathetic, deliberate distraction. Qatar's lobbying machine outspends pro-Israel groups by millions. Yet we barely hear crickets about it. This isn't just hypocrisy, it's an age-old scapegoat used to gut our civilization from the inside. When will we stop falling for the same cheap trick?
But you always come out optimistic. When I
Well,
listen
not
to those,
always. Yeah. Often.
Where goes Western civilization from here? Just my profit.
The one thing I do know is that you always have a set of choices in front of you, and the hour is never as late as some people will argue that it is. I finished this book on a very positive note, actually, as anyone who's read it will know. Some years ago, when I wrote my book, The Strange Death of Europe, I discovered that one of the most common reader responses was people said, that was an extremely depressing book to read. And I would generally say, well, you should have tried writing it. But actually, I say at the end of this book something which I just would love to share with you, which is that one of the things that disturbed me most in the aftermath of the 7th was the sheer lack of human empathy for what the people of Israel went through that day. About 6 months after the 7th, there were two young people who were survivors of the Nova Party. And they landed in England, in Manchester, at the airport. And they were there to raise funds and awareness for post-traumatic stress disorder in the survivors of terrorist attacks.
Two Nova Festival survivors who watched their friends get slaughtered arrive in the UK seeking help for PTSD. What happens? British border guards detain them, accusing them of being the aggressors. This isn't just a failure of empathy, it's a symptom of a deep moral sickness, where the West's institutions now instinctively side with terrorists over their victims. What happened to our spine?
And they were detained at Manchester Airport by British guards who said, among other things, we need to make sure you're not going to try to do here what you're doing in Gaza. And I was just so horrified again and again like that. In New York, the Nova exhibition, the memorial exhibition, opened in New York, and there was a man who lost his daughters at the Nova party who had to walk through a crowd on the New York streets chanting for Intifada and praising Hamas. Now this, to be somebody who goes through that and to keep yourself together, that's real courage, that's real heroism. But I've tried the counterfactual a lot of times. Imagine if a survivor of the Bataclan massacre or the Manchester Arena suicide bombing went abroad. Everywhere they'd be greeted only with sympathy, only with understanding and love and care. Yet something has happened that means that the people of Israel are deemed by a large number of people as being uniquely undeserving of these things. Well, as I say in the book, there is a challenge which the people who attacked Paris, who have attacked London, who've attacked multiple European cities, who attacked New York, and who attacked Israel always say. They always have some variant of this line, we love death more than you love life. Hassan Nasrallah famously said repeatedly, the problem with the Jews is that they love life, and this is their weakness. And the jihadists always say this about the West as a whole. They say that we're just people who love life. And I spent years thinking, what do you do in the face of hate like that? What do you do in the face of something so evil? And I realized that, and I said at the end of this book, there is an answer.
Imagine a Bataclan survivor being screamed at by jihadist sympathizers in Paris. Unthinkable. Yet a grieving Israeli father who lost his daughters at Nova faces exactly that in New York. We coddle our victims but spit on theirs. This is the West's sick joke, siding with a death cult that brags, "We love death," against a people whose weakness is loving life. How did our empathy get so broken?
And in my observation, the people of Israel have provided the answer. Firstly, of course, you make sure that if people like Hassan Nasrallah love death so much, they get it. But the second thing is perhaps much more important, which is simply to turn around to the death cults, to the people who support the groups like Hamas and so on, and you say, you know what? Fine. We do love life. And it's not our weakness. It is our greatest strength and has been for thousands of years and will be for thousands of years more to come. And that when the people like Hamas and Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad have gone the same way as Pharaoh, the Jewish people will still be there to say, I shall not die, but I shall live.
You know, I could keep you here all night, but I think that's a wonderful note to end on. We're so grateful that you're here. We're so grateful that God made you the way he made you. And I think we should all give Hillel Noyes, sorry. Douglas Murray, you're the same people.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure. Thank you.
Israel gets it. The only answer to people who worship martyrdom is to help them achieve it quickly. This isn't a weakness, it's the foundation of civilization. Our leaders' pathetic apologies for this strength are the real sickness. So, any thoughts on what Douglas Murray just discussed? Share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you never miss any of our future debates.